Welcome everybody, and today we're taking a look at a brand new box set. This is from Universal. It's a 4K box set comprising of 6 films from between 1931 and 1948, and it is Dracula Legacy. So yeah, like I said, 6 films, and yeah, it only cost I think around £60, so not a huge amount of money for what is a physical limited edition box set that has every film on 4K. 5 of these which have not been on 4K in the past. The only one that has been the first film, Dracula from 1931. And yeah, we're going to talk about each film first, and then we'll talk about the extras for each film after reviewing them, and then talk about the physical aspects and the 4K element as well. So yeah, like I said, first film directed by Todd Browning from 1931, who also did the likes of Freaks, Mark of the Vampire, The Mystic, and The Unknown. So, like all of the films in this box set, it's got a horror element to it. It's mostly is horror when it comes to the first 5 at the very least. And yeah, clocks in at 74 minutes long. Stars the likes of Bela Lugosi, who I've seen in 25 other films, obviously an icon of the horror genre. He was also in the likes of Son of Frankenstein, the Body Snatcher, and The Raven from 1935. Also stars David Manners, who was in the original The Mummy from 1932, the original Black Cat from 1934, and Hearts in Bondage. And finally, you got Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing, who would also appear in several other Universal horror films like Frankenstein and The Mummy, but who would also be in the likes of Behind the Mask, The Black Room, and Before I Hang. So, a British estate agent travels to Transylvania to meet the mysterious Count Dracula, who was interested in leasing a London castle. After Dracula enslaves the agent and drives into insanity, the pair return to London together, where Dracula, a secret bloodsucker, begins preying on socialites. So, this is obviously quite a highly influential effort, alongside Frankenstein and The Mummy from around the same period. Released around the same, and although it isn't the worst of the 3, personally I find Frankenstein to be the best of the 3. It isn't my favourite either. Although I would say the Mummy is comfortably worse than either of the 2 of them. That said, it's ultimately not quite my favourite, which is due to the pacing and lack of score, both of which feel like a hangover from the silent era. But it is still an entertaining and grossing effort, thanks in no small part due to the iconic performance from Bela Lugosi. I also like the look of the sets. There's plenty of atmosphere. It doesn't outstay its welcome, and the cinematography is on point. So yeah, we have several extras related to this film or otherwise on this disc, which we have the case itself there, and there is the disc for the first film. All but the last film share a disc with one another. So yeah, in terms of the extras on the disc, we've also got a 4K restoration of the Spanish version of this, which was shot right alongside this one using the same sets and such. So yeah, I have yet to see that one. I'm kind of saving that for October/Halloween. So I have not seen that yet, but it has had a 4K restoration alongside this 1931 English language version. But in terms of extras, you've got the likes of The Road to Dracula, which clocks in at 35 minutes long. Lugosi, The Dark Prince, which clocks in at 36 minutes long. Dracula Restoration, we got this in at 8 minutes 46 seconds. So that's, yeah, talking about the 4K restoration, where they also mentioned that they did the same with the Spanish version. You got Dracula Archives, which cuts in at around 9 minutes. So that's, you know, posters and behind the scenes shots and such, as well as trailers. So yeah, that's all very well done. And then the second film from 1936 is Dracula's Daughter. So this is directed by Lambert Hillier, who also did The Invisible Ray. And it clocks in at 71 minutes long. Stars the likes of Otto Kruger, who would be in the likes of Saboteur, Murder My Sweet, Magnificent Obsession, and High Noon. Not seen anything else from Gloria Holden, who is the titular Dracula's daughter. This was actually her first leading role as well. And then Edward Van Sloan also returns as Van Helsing from the first film. So a countess from Transylvania seeks a psychiatrist's help to cure her vampiric cravings. So even though this might not have been as immediately influential as the first film, I do predominantly prefer this to that original. This is due to the livelier pacing, better direction, and improved production value. Gloria Holden is also superb as the daughter of Dracula. Her character is well rounded, the rest of the cast is good, the cinematography is sublime, the score is well done, and the plot as a whole is engrossing. So, yeah, I forgot to mention that the first film gets 3.5, but this gets a 4 out of 5. So, yeah, definitely better. When it comes to the majority of these films, the only other extra it has is a trailer. I'll mention it when that is not the case. So yeah, the third film is Son of Dracula from 1943. Now this shares the disc with Dracula's daughter, as you can see there. So yeah, 1943, Son of Dracula, directed by Robert Siodmak, who's most well known, as far as I'm concerned, for his film noirs. I've seen 10 films in general, though, from him outside of this one. Favourites being that of The Killers, Crisscross, Phantom Lady, and Cry of the City. So this clock's in 80 minutes long, stars the likes of Lon Chaney Jr., who also been in many Universal horror films. So named in 24 films overall outside of this one. Favourites being the likes of The Wolfman, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, The Ghost of Frankenstein, and he was in 3 Mummy sequels as well. Also stars Robert Page, who was in The Monster and the Girl, which is one of many, ape gone wild kind of films from the early 40s. You think of The Ape Man and The Return of the Ape Man as well. And finally got Louise Albritton, who was in the likes of Pittsburgh and Walk a Crooked Mile. So Carpathian Count Alucard, say that name backwards and you know exactly who he is invited to the US by a young heiress. Her boyfriend and local officials are suspicious of the newcomer, who is interested in the virile soil of the New World. So not only had Lon Chaney taken over the role of Frankenstein and the main antagonist in the Mummy films during this period of the Universal monster films, but he also took over the reins of Dracula, which he is reasonable at. However, he ultimately does pale in comparison to both Bela Lugosi and Gloria Holden, both of whom previously helmed the Dracula films. That said, I am all for this feeling like a mix between film noir and horror, which is probably why, Robert Siodmak, which is probably because of Robert Siodmak, sorry, because obviously, like I said, he's more well known for his film noirs, so he's no doubt injected a bit of that style to this film. The cast as a whole is good. It is well paced, has an engrossing plot, some fantastic visual moments, and it is generally entertaining. So even though it does get the same score as the first film, it's not one that I prefer over that one, even though there are elements to it that are better. So it gets a 3.5 out of 5. And then the fourth film is House of Frankenstein from 1944, directed by Earl C. Kenton, who also did the likes of Island of Lost Souls, The Ghost of Frankenstein, and The Cat Creeps. Cuts in at 70 minutes long, stars Boris Karloff, who has seen in 45 other films, like Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi, integral to Universal monster films in the early days, with the likes of being in Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and The Mummy, playing the lead role in all of those. Also, stars Lon Chaney Jr. again, who, like we talked about earlier, was in Son of Dracula. We've also got J. Carroll Naish, who was in Calling Dr. Death and Strange Confession. John Carradine, who I've seen in 32 other films. He was also in a few small, generally uncredited roles in the early Universal horror films, but it would eventually be more leading role man material in like The Invisible Man's Revenge and The Mummy's Ghost. And finally, Lionel Atwill, who was also in a bunch of these kind of films like Son of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Man-Made Monster, and Night Monster. So this is the 6th film in the Frankenstein series, although 4th in the overall Dracula series. And although it does reverse the downward trend in quality that was seen in the prior effort, as Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is easily one of my least favourite of those films, it still ultimately pales in comparison to the first 3. So that'd be Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein, while not being quite as fun as The Ghost of Frankenstein, which isn't a great film by any means. I know some people hate it quite a lot, but I do find that to be quite a fun effort. That said, the cast to this is really good. It does a slightly better job than the prior film at bringing together classic monsters in one film, as we have obviously Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, and the Wolfman as well. It is well paced, has a fun finale, solid production, and it is great to see Karloff in a non-monster role, as he does not play Frankenstein's monster in this, as he gets not only more screen time, but also lends his role some real weight to his character. So, yeah, that also gets a 3.5 out of 5. And then the 5th film, so we'll take a look at the disc again for those two. For the two that we're going to look at, should I say. So this, for the 5th film is House of Dracula, which shares a disc with House of Frankenstein. And that was released in 1945, once again directed by Earl C. Kenton, so the only double director in this release. Clock's in at 67 minutes long. Stars again John Carradine, who plays again Count Dracula, like he did in the previous film, as well as Lon Chaney Jr., who once again returns as Wolfman, and Lionel Atwill, who Atwill, sorry, who's in this film again, but as a new character compared to the one in the previous film. Also stars Onslow Stevens, who was in Them, The Monster and the Girl, and The Creeper. And finally, Jane Addams, who was in The Brute Man alongside Rondo Hatton. So, a scientist working on cures for rare afflictions such as bone softening agent made from molds to allow him to correct the spinal deformity of his nurse finds the physical causes for the lycanthropy in Wolfman Larry Talbot and vampirism in Count Dracula, but himself becomes afflicted with homicidal madness when exchanging blood with Dracula. So this is the seventh and final film in the main Frankenstein series that had gone on for 14 years, which ends the series unfortunately not only with a rather serious tone, but also in joint last place in my rankings for with Frankenstein meets a Wolfman. So yeah, unfortunately both get 3 out of 5. That said, it is at least short, has a good cast. Apart from the ending, the plot does go in a different direction than the prior films. One common trait with these seems to be throwing people out windows, which happens in this and at least the one of the other ones in this set. It is well paced, predominantly engrossing, and has solid production, but it is far from the high point in the series or in this box set. So, yeah, it gets the lowest rating of any of the films in this box set, unfortunately. And yeah, like all of the previous films outside of the first film, it's also got a trailer only as a bonus extra. And finally, getting it a disc of its own, just like Dracula did, we have Bud Abbott and Lou Costello meet Frankenstein, or shortened down to Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. So from 1948, directed by Charles Barton, who also did Abbott and Costello meet the killer, Boris Karloff. So this is a horror comedy. It clocks in at 83 minutes long, so it's the longest of any of the films in this box set. And of course stars Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, who star in several films over the years. But I've only seen them in 2 other efforts, unfortunately, like Meet the Invisible Man and Meet the Mummy. Also stars Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., and Glenn Strange. So Bela Lugosi revives his Dracula character. Lon Chaney Jr. is once again Wolfman, and Glenn Strange is Frankenstein's monster, which he was also in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. It also stars Lenore Aubert, who was in The Catman of Paris, and finally Jane Randolph, who was in The Cat People. So the Wolfman tries to warn a dim-witted porter that Dracula wants his brain for Frankenstein monster's body. So it is surprising how fun and entertaining this horror comedy is, because with it being nearly 75 years old, or no, it's closer to 78 years old now. Yeah, 78 years old. The pacing and comedy could easily come across as being outdated, but thankfully neither of those elements was like that. And in fact, they feel far more modern than one would expect. Abbott and Costello are great, with both of them having infectious chemistry between one another. We get 2 horror icons in the form of Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi, who are really rather good. There is a heavy helping of laughs throughout. It is well paced. The plot is engrossing. The finale is huge fun, and it manages to be mostly consistent in terms of entertainment. So yeah, this is getting a 4 out of 5 alongside Dracula's Daughter, although I would say that former film is my favourite of the 6 in this box set. In terms of extras, we get Abbott and Costello meet the monsters, clocks in at 33 minutes 48. Got 100 Years of Universal a lot, which clocks in at 9 minutes 27. 100 Years of Unforgettable Characters, 100 Years of Universal Unforgettable Characters, should I say. That clocks in at 8 minutes 19. And then we get a trailer, and then we also get an audio commentary with film historian Gregory W. Mank. So, yeah, the only audio commentary in this release, unfortunately. So, yeah, overall, this box set's really good, though, to be honest. I know I've given one 3 stars, but the rest have gotten 3.5 or more. In terms of rankings, like I said, I think Dracula's Daughter is my favourite of the bunch. Then Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein. Then the original Dracula will be in 3rd. House of Frankenstein would be in 4th. Son of Dracula would be in 5th. And House of Dracula would be in 6th place. So yeah, no reversible sleeve artwork for this release. Although I think the new artwork is fairly decent, to be honest. Especially for what is obviously a studio release, which typically can be underwhelming. Oh, I forgot also to say that there's another extra for the original Dracula, and that is the alternate Philip Glass score. So you can watch it with an alternative score if you so wish. And yeah, the even though the hard box itself is not particularly strong, it is quite weak, and to the point where it's actually got slightly damage. It does again have the decent artwork, which also carries on the back, but it is quite fingerprint heavy, as you can see. which is a little bit of a shame. But what isn't a shame are all the physical extras that we get with this release. So we get several art cards. The only letdown being that there isn't one for one of the films, which we'll hopefully be able to work out which one. But yeah, we do get several. So we get the original Dracula one there. We get House of Dracula. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Son of Dracula. Dracula's daughter. So yeah, I think it's House of Frankenstein that we don't get one for some reason. And then we get another Son of Dracula one. And then we get a few shots from the film with the corresponding title. So they are nicely printed on a nice thick card as well. It's always nice to see. It's just a shame and a mystery why House of Frankenstein does not have an art card of its own. We also get a booklet with this release as well. Nothing on the reverse really. And yeah, inside you get a cast and crew for each of individual film and a few bits of trivia linked as well. So basically the way it does the trivia, it puts a number beside the picture and then the bit of trivia is on the bottom. As so. So number one bit of trivia. So the number one bit of trivia there is Professor Von Helsing, or played by Edward Van Sloan, takes Sergeant Wilkes and Constable Albert to the bodies of Count Dracula and Renfield in the opening scene of Dracula's daughter. Because it starts basically where the first film ends. So yeah, that's a nicely done one there. And we also have... No, that's it, basically. Oh yeah, we have the cast as well in... Well, the main cast, should I say, in terms of showing them as their pictures. I'm going to get to one here. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. So the House of Frankenstein. So it shows the actor name and the character that they play, which I quite like, to be honest, because obviously more often than not you can mistake a certain actor for a certain character, and of course, or vice versa. Now, obviously, with the internet, that is less of an issue, but it still can be an issue at times. So it's nice to see their image alongside. And we also get a double-sided poster with this release as well. So we get the original Dracula poster, which is really nice to have, on decent thick paper as well. Unlike which one did we review not long ago? Can't remember now. Which didn't have the best poster in the world. And then we get a shot from the film as well on the reverse. There's Dracula. Am I getting that the right way around? No, I don't think so. I don't know if I'm even getting that the right way around. Probably that way around, to be honest. But yeah, can't always get it the right way around instantly. But yeah, on the whole, a really, really good box set, to be honest. It's got a decent amount of extras, which for a studio release is quite a lot. You know, studio releases typically don't come with a huge amount of extras, but there is a fair decent amount. It's just a shame that for every film that is not the case. Like I said, when it comes to the all of the films outside of Dracula and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, they only have a trailer as an extra. So that is a little bit of a shame. But when it comes to the 4K aspect of this, it is great. Obviously, we already know what Dracula looks like, as we've had that in the previous box sets from Universal. But to have all 6 films in 4K, all looking really, really good, all looking like they've had some restoration work to them, while also having DTS HD master audio in 2.0 mono English, plus obviously other audio options in like Spanish, French, German and Italian, is really, really good. We've also got English subtitles for the deaf or hard of hearing. It's in 2160p, Ultra HD, HDR10, widescreen, 133:1 aspect ratio. So yeah, it looks and sounds really, really good in all aspects, to be honest. Obviously, I only know about the restoration work for the original film and its Spanish version, so I can't say what other work has gone into this, but considering they obviously did a lot of work on the first film, I imagine there was a lot of work to do for the other 5 as well. So yeah, on the whole, I'm impressed by this box set, especially since it's nowhere near as pricey as the likes of the Nightmare on Elm Street box set or the Sean Connery James Bond box set. Granted, the Nightmare on Elm Street one came with another film, but it didn't have any of the extras in terms of physical, like booklet or art cards or a poster. and it costs about £30 more. So yeah, on the whole, I'm impressed by the price of it. I'm impressed by the 4K aspects of it, and on the whole, it's really good to have these filmed on 4K. Granted, I did have 4 of these films in other formats already. I obviously had the first Dracula on 4K already, and 3 of the other ones on Blu-ray. But I never had Son of Dracula or Dracula's Daughter on Blu-ray before, so they're new in physical terms anyway. So that alone was worth it, and they are definitely an upgrade over their Blu-ray versions that I've had in the past. So yeah, on the whole, a really, really good box set, one that it's well worth getting, especially since it doesn't cost that much. And if you're a fan of, you know, Universal horror monster films, then these are going to be right up your street regardless. So yeah, it's not the only Universal box set we're getting this year though. Obviously, Umbrella Entertainment has their massive 45 film box set coming out later this month, which does also have some Universal monster films in there. Granted, there is some overlap with previous releases, but I'll get into it why I've bought the box set when it comes to reviewing that one when it comes out eventually. But nonetheless, if you've seen any of these 6 films before, I'd like to hear your thoughts on them. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.